Hi, welcome back to the channel. So 2 days ago, I actually ran a Notion workshops on formulas. So what we went through is the basics of text formatting, date, if statements and let, and also more advanced data handling such as map and filter. And also lastly, just extra challenges. So it ran about 1.5 hours. So unfortunately, I forgot to record it, which is why I've been doing this video again. So if you're watching now, probably the benefits for you is that there's less downtime in between. So yeah, and then just to prove it, we actually ran the workshop and I forgot to record it. Alright, so before we start, there will be a link that you can download this template in the link description below. So you can just download it and then follow along. So you can just pause and then you want to try to do it yourself. Alright, so if I'll try to include the timeline as well for each of this so that it'll be easier for you to kind of follow along or skip through it if you're a bit more advanced. Alright, without further ado, we're going to go for the first exercise or question here. So first is text formatting. So the first concept you want to understand is how we can kind of stylize your text. You can make it bold, you can make it colors, you can highlight it. So how can we do that in Notion formula? So the first task is to format the text to green color. So you might notice there's a toggle here. So when there's a toggle here, it means there's a hint or you can copy and paste if you feel like you're stuck, right? So you can always just expand it and then close it up, all right? So for the first task, you want to change this text to green color using style. So how can we do that is when it comes to Notion formula. So if you're new to it, you can always just click plus and then type formula here. And let's say you can select the formula. But for this tutorial, we're going to just use try yourself here. So this is where you can just fill in your formula here. So first, you want to change the name, right? So in Notion, it's a bit different from Excel or Google Sheets, is that in those software, you kind of choose as a cell, right? But in Notion, you always select the whole column here. So, but Notion calls it properties. So this time we want to select the name properties, all right? So by default, just select it, it's just showing the same thing. So how can we change it to green color? You can use a function called style. So you type style and then open bracket, and then you use this one. What do you call this again? I keep forgetting it even during the workshop. Quotation. Okay, so use the quotation mark, you type green, so you close it up, and that's it. You can see that the color changed to green. So name.style, open bracket, quotation mark, green. As simple as that. You can change it to red, you can change it to blue. Yeah, that's it. So you want to know more about the styling, so there's a cheat sheet here. And then I'm not sure if this covers all of them, but if you want a bit even more, you can always have Google it, just type Notion style, then it will shows up. All right. So next one is change the background text to orange. So essentially you want to kind of highlight it. So how you can do it is the same thing. Do name. Okay, before I do that, I'll just give you can pause, you can try it yourself first. All right, then we'll do it now. So name dot style again. So instead of just typing the color directly like this, so we can see that the text changed to orange, right? So what we need to do is just orange underscore background. So you can see that automatically it changes to orange background here. All right. So the next one is number 3, format the text to italic. So similar, you'll be using style as well. So you can pause it if you want. Okay, I'll continue now. So we select the name properties, type style, and then open bracket, and then do quotation mark, and then just type I. All right, if you just type I, you just become italic. You can type B, you become bold. If you type C, you become like a coding kind of thing. And then I think S is strike through. All right, so in this case, we just want it to be italic. Simple enough. All right, so next one is make text clickable. All right, so this one you might want to make this text clickable, right? How can we do this? So if you haven't used this before, essentially Notions allow you to make hyperlink for your text. So there are various benefits, but one of it is that usually when you link multiple things, right, you want people to select it. I'll show you in the download like exercise later. But essentially how you can do this is, so if you want to try yourself, you can pause, but I'll continue now. So select the name, and then we do style, not style, my apologies, you do link. So you can do whatever link you want. For example, just do google.com, right? So make sure that you have the quotation mark in between, and that's it. So you can make the link clickable. If I click it, it opens Google for me. So if you combine this with if statements, you can actually do a lot of different things to make your links dynamic in a sense. All right. So next, we'll go to part 2 now. So if you're following along, if any questions, any use cases you want, you always can comment down below. So for date formatting, change date format to 25-04-16 and then open bracket Wednesday, close bracket. So in Notion, like we always use dates a lot, like use for due dates, tracking things, so habit tracker, stuff like that. You want to stylize the dates, right? So how can we do that? So in this case, we have this date property here. You want to change it to this format. So how you can do that is, so I'll give you, you can want to try yourself, you can pause, but continue here. So we select the date, dot, and then we use something called format date, right? So format dates. So Notion provides a description as well, like format the date using a custom format string. So we need to give them custom instructions. All right, so what you can do is we kind of type the format that we want. So in this case, we want to show only 2 years. We can type YY. If I just close the apostrophe, right, I'm in quotation mark, you can see that it's showing 25 here. And I can do dash and then do MM. You can see it's showing the month, and then dash again, do DD, showing the day. All right, and then you want to have the bracket, so we're just going to do bracket here. I think it should be lowercase, and that's it. You can see we have the exact format. So this sounds like might be like gibberish here, but essentially there's a format of coding here depending on how you type, right? Let's say I do one more Y here, it should be 2 more Y. You can see it's 2025. If I do one more M, it's an APR, and when I do 4 more, it's April. So you can play around with it. There's a code here, there's a cheat sheet as well. If you open here, you can kind of follow this along. You can just play around to manipulate how you want the text to be. All right, so this is the first one. And the second one is select the end date only. So in Notion, when it comes to date, you usually have 2 dates here. You can April 15 and April 15 and 18, right? So sometimes maybe you want to do some comparison just with the end dates. Like the end dates equals to today, is it like overdue, things like that. You want to kind of do a formula. So how can we select the end date? All right, so how you can do that is type date and then just select end date, or date end in this case. So dot date and, cannot pronounce properly, and I can see that we're only selecting the end date. So you might be asking, oh, how about start date? So it's the same thing. So just type, instead of end, you just type start. That's it. All right. So, and then just to kind of be mindful as well, when you kind of do comparison using formulas, so if you don't specify which dates you're looking for, right, Notion will always go back to the start date. So just have to be mindful for that. And then next, question 7. So return tick or true if date is today, right? So now we're doing some comparison. So how can we do that is, it's very simple. So you can just select the date here. So equals to, you can type today. So if you do it like this, basically, since it's not today, so it's unchecked or unticked. If I go for 18, you can see that it just returns as tick. I'm just gonna see, yeah, that's kind of how the formula is, and that's it. So next one is return tick if date is this week. So this is a bit more different. Like how can we make sure that this is this week, right? So we kind of don't know. So how you can do is, you can do the same thing. We can select the date again, but in this case, we want to know the week numbers, right? So right now we don't really have the week numbers. So that's where format date comes in. So format date. So you want to do, first of all, you want to have YY here. So what the YY is, just a reminder, is the year. So you want to be able to keep track of the year, because like, for example, you can just write the week. So how you kind of write the week is just WW. So this is week 16 of 2025. But let's say if your system goes for next year, right? So you have 2026, you don't want them to like compare just a week. That's why you always combine both of them. You type the year in front first, because year is the bigger number, and then you have the week. And then you just do it equals. So I'll give you a chance to think about it. All right, so you probably thought of it already. So just type today, format date, and then just do the same thing, year, week equals. So you can see that if you're on the same week, you just be tick. If I'm gonna move it to the previous week, type here 9th, you can see that's unchecked. All right, simple enough. So now that we have learned the basics of formatting the text and then also dates, so next one we can go into is if statements and let. So if you have been using programming before, like, so you probably are familiar with if statements. So if this else something something, right? And then let is the equivalent of variables. So I heard from one of the participants that this are commonly being used in JavaScript. That's why they have a let. So I'm more familiar with like variables and then the global variables, things like that. And then, so first one question is show check if checkbox is ticked, uncheck if checkbox is unticked. So you want to show this word check, or if it's not, then we show uncheck. So basically, if you change this right, this one should be updated. So we use it, try it yourself here. So how can we do this right? So we can use if statements here. So if, so there are two, either use if or ifs. So if is more for multiple conditions, but normally I just use if is more than enough, to be honest. So if condition is true, then you show the true condition. Not is you show the false one. So if checkbox, so we want to check, right? So if checkbox is true, and then we type check. If not, we type uncheck, and then you close bracket. So if we kind of use this now, you can see that it's changing. So if you're new to formulas in general, or mean like programming as well, so when it comes to checkbox, right, it's basically something they call Boolean. So the state is just like, if it's tick, it's just true. If it's not tick, it's false. That's why we're writing true and false here. So if it's true, then we just type the check. So you can, whatever text you want here as well, like it is true, something like that. So it's up to you. Like you can definitely be creative about it. So that's the idea of it. All right, so I'm gonna just type it back here, and that's it. So that's the concept of if statements. You have the condition here. So this is the condition, and this is the output that you want. When it's true, when it's not true. All right. And then the next question is question 10 is if either name or address is empty, then return check. So this is something that's very common as well. Let's say you want to have a reminder system kind of thing for your clients or your users, whoever is using it. So oftentimes when I use it for when I build a system for my clients, right, we want to remind people to kind of make sure that input all the information, you can have a reminder tool. So this is when you can do it. So if either of these is not ticked, we just want to remind people, oh, it's not ticked. So how we can do that is we can do the same thing. If the name, you want to check, make sure the name right. So if name equals to empty, then you can do maybe like true, if not false, for example. Of course, maybe I want to have this one, so you can just copy this one. I want to show it here. If not, then do like this, right? So we can make it empty, just to kind of showcase that. Let me see. Why is it not showing though? Interesting. If this one equals to empty, then it's equals to empty, right? Okay, maybe not this formula then. I'm not sure why it doesn't work. In my mind it should work, but regardless, this is not my main intention as well. So this is kind of how you can compare specific text. For example, equals to name, I think it should work. Let me type a name here. You can see that it's the same. So probably there's some kind of value here when it comes to name. I'm not too sure why, but regardless, this is not my first choice anyway. So how you can use validation as well, you can use something called empty. So this is actually more accurate. So if I can click save, right, you can see that if this is empty, automatically Notion should just show a tick button here. All right. So this is kind of how we can use it. So, and then you can add multiple conditions in this if. So I can do or address empty. Then you can see that if either one of them is empty, then it will show a tick mark. So you can do or, you can do and. So there are different ways you can do it. If both are empty, right, then you want to show it. So in this case, we do empty. So one of the cool tricks, so if you're using Notion for a while, you probably knew it already, but you can do something like a checkbox trick here. So you can do, you may just make it very, very small, and I can change this back to the formula. Okay, you can see that Notion retains the formula. You can just do the left side here. So you can automatically see it's like a very nice reminder system that doesn't really bother the user, right? Okay, I'm gonna just refresh this. All right, that's it. Going to the next one. So if either name or address is missing, display the tick or cross. So this one is the same, similar to the use case here, but maybe a bit more advanced. We can kind of see both of them at the same time. So if you type in here, right, the idea is that if you type a name here, this one should be tick. Now, you can see at the same time all of them in one display. So I'm trying to recall how I wrote this just quickly. Okay. So it's a similar thing what we do. So essentially we do this first thing first. We can type the reminder here. So I can type that the text in the formula, right? It's just use quotation. So open and then close. And then we make it bold. So if you remember here, we make it bold. So we have the reminder here. So when you want to have multiple text chaining together, right? If you're using Google Sheets or Excel, you're probably familiar with something called concatenate or concat. So basically like combining multiple strings, right? For Notion, it's much easier. You just use plus. So you can plus, and then now we want to compare the name, right? We want to get the show this X. Let me just copy this 2 first so that I can use it. So how you can do this is you can do the name. So we do if. So we're basically doing what we did earlier here. Is empty. Then we show the cross, right? So if it's empty, we show this one. If not, then we show the tick or the check mark. That's it. So if you can see here, we already have something semi-functional. So we have this checkbox here, but you might notice that it's actually not lining up properly. So there's no like enter spacing here, right? So how you can add that is actually very simple. You can do something like this. So basically just do /n plus, and normally I like to kind of make the code easier to read, which is where you use, I'll repeat again, you can use shift and then enter if you're using Windows. If you're using Mac, just shift return. So just to have an easier way to read the formula. So this is something called like an escape sequence. So it's in other programming language as well. I think especially HTML. So n basically they call like a new space, or in layman terms it's basically just enter. So once I have this, you can automatically see that this formula just goes down here. That's it. So the last thing we just do is just type a name, add it here, and then we have a space here. That's it. Yeah, you can see that it's similar now. So, and one thing to note as well, whatever you do inside the formula, right, it won't affect whatever you see outside, because when it comes to formula coding, it's always about the clear instructions that you provide. So all this spacing is actually more for just human to kind of read. It's not for a computer to understand. Yeah. And next one you want to do is just do the same thing. We can do this one again, and then plus we can do if address empty, and then let me just copy paste the same thing because I'm lazy, and then just paste it here, and lastly just type address here, right? And then why is it there's no space here? Okay, we got space here. All right, and that's it. You can see that we have this reminder system here. When we type an address here, you can see automatically just tick. So yeah, it's a very nice and just very helpful way to kind of remind the user essentially. So moving on to the last question for this one is keep your formula organized with let or lets. All right. So we have a use case here. We have an item list items you want to buy. You know, iPhone 1 for example. The price is $15, so not possible nowadays. Not even last time, I guess. So you have a 5% discount, and then you get the discounted price, right? So how you can do this is you don't even need lets to be honest, but you can use it for more clarity. I kind of show you now. Let me just see how I wrote this. All right. So even before thinking about using let or variables, right? So how can we get this discounted price, right? Is we use the original price. We're going to type the price, select the properties, times discount. So if it times it, we get the discounted value, the savings, right? So how we can do this is we can just maybe bracket this up, and then we use the price just minus the discounted price, and then we get the same thing. All right. So now instead of keeping this like a long formula, I'll teach you how you can use let to just keep it together and how we potentially can use this. So I'm just gonna control X, I guess, just to cut it so that we can use it later. So let's start a new, right? So let's start again. So let. So if you're gonna open a bracket, right, you can see Notion actually explains to you what let means. So you can have the variables, value, and expression. So variable basically just a naming convention for what you want to type. So we're gonna close the bracket, and we're gonna do shift return and enter again. So just to make the structure easier to read, and then I'm gonna just type discounted, okay? And then I'm gonna paste the formula that we had earlier. So price minus bracket price times discounts that will be our discounted price. All right. So make sure that you want to always have a comma here, and then you're going to do shift enter again, just type discounted. So this is where you get the discounted price. So I'm going to do save, then it's the same thing. Then you might be asking, Thomas, what is the purpose of me of doing this, right? So why can't I just type this formula? So one of the main reasons is that once you have this right, you don't have to keep on typing the same thing again, this long as formula. So it's not too long, but essentially what I can do is that I can kind of do this to discounted, or I can time something, I can minus something. So it just helps to make your code more readable, or formula in this case, right? So that's one of the goals. You don't want to be at the end of the day, like after you wrote your formulas or code, after 2 or 3 days, you just forgot what this is for, like it's just confused. So this happens a lot. This is why variables is a very, very good way to kind of help us to keep track of our formulas or code to be tidy. So in terms of naming convention, you always want to make it as understandable as possible. So it doesn't matter like if you can be a bit longer, it looks a bit stupid, like discounted price, for example. Okay, I'm just gonna remove this. Yeah, it's okay. If it looks stupid, if it looks a bit long, it's not very cool, it doesn't matter. The main goal is it has to be understandable, even without you reading the code. So once you see this, okay, this is the discounted price. Yeah, that's the main point of having variables. So you might notice there's let and then let's. So let's basically just allows you to have more than one variables, and let is just you can only have one. So yeah, so we'll go through this again in the exercise down below, but that's it for now. So I'm gonna go through it. The next one is advanced data handling. So now we have map and filter. So we're going into the more difficult, I guess, next level territory basically. So I'll take it a bit slower because this one is a bit more advanced, but I personally believe that it's very, very helpful, that I use it a lot, not even a lot, like all my projects I use it essentially. So here we have looking at this employee database. So we have James, Luke, Cynthia, Jessica, Paul. I'm just delete Jonathan here first. So we have 5 of them. Okay, we have their join date when they first joined the company, their age, their email address, and the team they belongs to. So this is actually a relation property. All right. So on the question 13, so we'll be moving. So for the rest of the 13, 14, 15, we'll be using the same employee database. Okay. So if you go down here on 13, right? So we have 3 teams here. So HR, finance, and operation, which correlates with this because we are linking 2 of the database together. And then you can see that this is the employee's name here. And then our goal is, so instead of having them have this format, right, we just kind of make sure that it's lining up like this so it looks pretty. So by doing this, we can use map. So how we can do this is, so you probably have used something called rollup before as well. We can do something similar using rollup. So I want to show you why rollup is not as good and not as flexible. But first, I'm going to just do rollup first. So roll up and then select employee, and then that's it. You can see that this is roll up, right? So but we can't really do something like this, right? You can do maybe just make it smaller. Yeah, it kind of similar but not really the same. So and then you can't do any stylize. You can't change the color of the text. Like there are a lot of things you can do using maps, but just to kind of highlight that there's a clear limitations when it comes to roll up, which I used to love it, but we move on now since it's 2025 right now. So we want something better. I'm going to delete this. So first thing, how you can do is you want to reference the employee database. All right. So by default, if you just do it, right, so essentially it's just roll up. If you do it like this, it's just the same as roll up. All right. Okay. How can we make this sure that it's replicate into this format here, right? So how you can do this is, so I'm going to try and join here. Actually, I'm curious whether it's possible doing like this. Yeah, it's possible. So even we don't use line map. Okay, this is not a very good example here. I was thinking like to do it here, but yeah, essentially you can do join as well. So okay, I'll skip explaining map for this now. But essentially what we're doing here when we're using join, right? Okay, so let me just kind of use this opportunity to teach another concept. So essentially what we are seeing here in the database is something that normally programming people call like a list or an array. So basically we're getting the list from this database here. So this list is a filtered version, right? So we can only see Cynthia and Jessica. So this is a list for finance. You can think of it like that. And then this is a list for operations. So it's like a bucket. Inside the bucket, you have 2 Cynthia and Jessica. Inside this bucket, you have James and Luke. So that's what people normally refer to as lists. So using map, filter, or join that we'll be using here is ways we can manipulate the list to look the way we want, to get the information that we want. So in this case, we're using join. Let me just kind of show you to you. So when type join, right? So Notion will tell you yourself, you can see list.join. So basically this is our list, all right? So we're gonna do like this. If we close it, there's nothing happen. So what join basically is doing is that it helps you to add something in between the lists. So let's say I can even type F, right? You can see that Cynthia will have an F at the end, and Jessica won't have it. So because Cynthia is the first one, no, I think Cynthia is the next one, right? Also it adds at the end, so it's not at the front, if I understand this correct. Yeah. So it will add each of these, right? Let me add one more person here. So we'll do Jonathan again. And then we're gonna add Jonathan here. I don't know why sometimes it's not showing. Or I'm gonna just manually add to finance here. Hopefully it just shows up. Okay, you can see that Jonathan is here now. So now I can see that Cynthia and Jessica have the F here. So basically what joins is doing is just adding like each of these lists here. You can see there's an example here, A, B, C. You can add something in between. Like in this example, they use comma, right? You can see that it's adding comma for us. All right. So I'm gonna do this space here. So this is what we did in the previous example as well, to give them spacing, right? So this is kind of how when you use join, you can create spacing for them in between here. All right. So using join. So I'm going to change this title. All right. So next one is question 14. Display the employee's age using map. All right. So now we're finally using map. All right. So forget what you heard earlier. So for this one, same thing. We're going to do the employee. So instead of getting the names, right, we want to get just the age, right? How can we do this? So you probably know now by this time, we're going to use the employee database. We're going to type map. So this is the first time that you think of using map, right? Or at least your first encounter probably. So you can see here is that map list expression. So I'm just open this as well. So in this case, we're using the employee database dot map. So it's list dot map. And then you write the expression, whatever is inside here. So you can see the example from Notion as well. So it kind of show you 1, 2, 3, right? So in our case, imagine that Jessica and Cynthia is the 1, 2, 3, or in this case 1, 2. All right. And then by default, you always just type current here in the map here. And then we close it, right? It's actually just the same thing. It's basically just showing the employee database. So we don't want that, all right? So before we close it, the current, what you want to do is just do a dot. So once you put a dot here, right? What happens is that Notion actually automatically just suggests you. It's very smart, you know? It's helping you like show, okay, which properties do you want to show from the employees database? So for this case, you want to show the age, right? So if you just type select the age and then close it, and then we just save the formula, right? Automatically you can see that we already have the age here. See 30, 25, 50. So this is kind of how you can do it. So what's one advantage here, right? You can even do something like, I want to know the overall age of each department, right? So you can do something like called sum. So you can see automatically it's just combining all their age together. So you can kind of have a fun way that, oh, this department is the oldest one. So this is kind of how you can use map potentially. All right. So I'm gonna just close it up, save. Next one is display both the employee's name and age side by side using map and let. All right. So now you have a bit of basic understanding of map. So next one is we're gonna use map and let, right? So let is basically, if you still remember, it's just a variable. So you want to achieve something like this. So Paul and then space 30 years old. Cynthia 25 years old. So how can we do this? So it's very simple, but then it's not that intuitive. At least personally for me, it took me a while to kind of understand because I kept watching, I think you remember like Thomas Frank's video about formula, Notion 2.0 formula. So if you're interested to learn that, you can always go back to watch that as well. It's very, very in-depth formula here. So first thing first, you probably know now we're going to start with employee database. All right. And then we're going to use map. And then before we type anything else, we're going to type let here. Okay. So bear with me. It can be very confusing, but I'm going to just show this is the formula here. So I kind of explain the logic once we build it. But before that, you just kind of follow along. So we have the map, open bracket, let, open, close bracket. All right. So just to make the formula easier to read, right? I'm going to just do a shift enter here or shift return. And then at the end here as well, just do a shift return here. And here do another one. And then this one I wanted to go to back, right? I can do shift tab. So this is kind of how you can do it. So just to have a better formatting, just easier for me to read. So next one is you want to name the employee, one of names the variable, right? So I'm going to just name it employee and then current and then just comma. So, and then I'm just going to type employee here. So what you're going to see here is the same thing again. So you're essentially seeing the employee database or row up view. All right. So the idea for this one is, instead of you keeping typing whatever I showed you earlier, like this one, right? Like employee map current.h. So it's very long, especially when combine multiple things, right? So the concept of map is actually going through the list one by one. So you can see 1, 2, 3, right? So whatever you're doing, like current plus 1, right? So it's like 2, 3, 4. Notion formula is actually going through each of them. So it's something like a loop if you use formula programming before, like a for loop, right? So it's plus 1, and so 1 plus 1 equals 2, and then Notion goes to the next one. 2 plus 1 equals 3. It goes to the next one. 3 plus 1 equals 4. So how you can actually use this feature is, so this is the magic here when I first learned it, is, so employee, you can do dot, all right? So I want to show the employee name, right? We can select the name here. So if we're going to do it now, we can save it. You can see now we're showing the name only, all right? So nothing too special now. But next you can do is, you can do plus. So let me just do a space here. Okay. And then employee dot age. And then save. So now you probably start to notice the magic here. So instead of typing these codes multiple times, Notion actually helps you to keep looping it based on the same instructions. Basically what we're telling Notion is, so now please get me the employee's name and then also the employee's age every time you go through each of the employees here and display it. So I hope that you start to understand the power and wonders of this combination. And last thing to close it up is we want to make sure that they have their own enter spacing, right? So you can do that is just at the end of here, just do a join and then just do slash bracket and then save. You can see that the end result is we have a very nice looking list here. So every time you add a new employees here, you'll change their names, things like that, you'll just automatically update for you. So that's it. I hope that this is something that probably you won't get it at the first time because it took me a while as well to understand. So, but once you practice more and more and more, slowly you'll find more ways to kind of use this. All right. So now we have finished the whole worksheets. So we have 2 more extra challenges or extra questions here. So let me just check the time. Okay, so I still have 20 more minutes. All right, so extra challenges number 1. So first exercise is one have like a red, orange, green light system. So I always call it like a traffic light system here. So the idea is that when the due date is overdue, you want to display this red traffic light. If it's today, if it's due today, we want to show this green, not green. This is amber or orange. And if it's just still good, you know, we just show as green color. All right. So how can we do this? So we can do this through, let me kind of cheat a little bit. I forgot how I wrote this. So due dates, format dates. Okay, so we'll be using lets in this case. All right. So this is one example that you'll be seeing how we can use lets to kind of simplify our codes or formula here. So first thing we use lets, all right, because we'll be using multiple variables. So let's, if you just close it, right, you can see that Notion is actually throwing an error. So don't worry about it, because if you do let here, it's fine. The reason is that if you type lets, right, so Notion is expecting you to have at least 1 variables. That's why it's throwing some tantrum here, but it's fine, you know, we can calm it down. So first thing is you want to get the date, the due date format here. You want to make it into a format that we can easily compare with another day. All right, so how can we do this? So if you still remember, we use the format date. So first thing I'm going to type just the variable name. We just type due date. So it's just the same thing, right? And then you might notice why am I typing in this way, right? So due and then the capital letter D. So because in variables or in even just coding in general, right, in formulas, you cannot have space. So we can't do like due date. So a lot of people like, it depends on your preference as well. We use something called like a camel case, like, so this is just to kind of separate this to let you yourself know that this is a due dates. So in formulas or a lot of programming language, it's usually not case sensitive, so it doesn't matter. So This is why you can use this. All right. So now we're gonna select due date here. So the property itself, and then do format date. But this is just do year, month, day. And then I'm just gonna do a comma first, and then just type down due date. So this will shut up Notion. It will just stop throwing the error. So let me just kind of explain the formula here, right? So essentially we have due dates here, and then we change the format of date into year, month, day. So why are we doing this, right? So we're doing this so that it's easier to compare with another value here, which in this case we want to compare with today. So I'm going to type today as well. So you can do shift enter or shift return. You type today, and then you type today again, but this is the function today, and then do format dates, and then year, month, day. All right. So now we're comparing between apple and apple, so it's easier. Let me just type today as well. I'm gonna show you, right? So this is the, oh no, I'm showing the wrong today. So this is today, you see? So maybe it can be a bit easier, like maybe a bit clearer. I can type today date, so maybe a bit less confusing. So today date. So now we want to compare it apple by apple, because once we have this format here, we can easily compare it between it. So let's say, for example, due date equals to today, for example. So now you can compare it as if it's the same day, and then if they're more than today, for example. So this is kind of how you can compare it. So, and don't have to keep typing the same thing. All right. So, but of course you can also use what do you call it again? Just comparing directly, I guess. That's true as well. Probably not the best example, but just pretend that you need this for now. So now we're gonna use if statements. So I'm gonna copy this three green, red, orange, and green. So if today, maybe if due date first. If due dates equals to today date, for example, means that we're supposed to show orange, right? So we can do like just show the orange color here, and then normally you can just close it, and that's it. Let's say if I have this show today, right? You can see that it's just orange, right? Usually we end by here, but now we want to have multiple conditions, right? So what you can do is you can use ifs, but for me personally, I prefer just use if. So you can use if as well. So if due date maybe more than today date. So if this one is more than today date, right? So just more. You don't want it equals, so this shows green. So it's not the correct sequencing, like quote unquote. And then you can do like close as well. You can see that if we're on track, it will just show a green color here. And lastly, you can just do a red here at the end. And that's it. You have yourself like a traffic light button here by using this formula. Alright, so equals or more than, or you can do less than, so there are various ways you can use it. So this is probably not the best logic to kind of write. You probably want to have maybe the red at the first, and then orange, amber at the middle, and then green at the last, but it works regardless, right? The last exercise is projects that show all the status, right? So in this case, you want to replicate something like this. So this, just to clarify, these two projects, they are linked together, right? So this is a project database, imagine it. This is our task. So you can see the task is linked here. So task 1 and 2. So the idea is that without going into the task itself or the project itself, we don't have to expand it. We can see the status of the task itself. How is it doing? So you can have a Kanban board example. This is probably a better one. So I'm going to show a property here. Let me still do the try yourself replicate this. All right. You can see that if you have a Kanban view, right? So without even clicking into your project, you can see the task here. You can see which one is overdue. And then if it's overdue, when is the due date? So, and then if you do a check, right, it will disappear as well. So this is just a very cool or easy way to kind of help you to navigate between the Kanban board. So how you can replicate this is, let me just cheat again to kind of see. Okay, so we're using the same map and filter, map and let. So there's a new thing here, which is filter, which I'm going to show you now how we can use it. So you might notice that when I click this will disappear, right? So this is where we're using filter here. So filter is just another way to interact with lists again. So hopefully I have enough time because I've done a meeting at 2. So you can type the task. In this case, want to interact with the task, right? We want to show the task here. You can do filter. So filter is the same thing as a list. So you can see that if I close it, right? So same thing, the list and then the filter. So by now, you're probably familiar, we always type current here. So current dot dates, due date, because you want to filter the due date, right? Not due date, sorry, checkbox. So we want to filter the checkbox and make sure the checkbox is not true. So we can type filter checkbox that's not true. So we can do either, so when you do like this, right, it's actually not equals to, but okay, we can do like equals to false, which is not true, same thing. So if we do this, automatically you can see that it's already filtered for you. If I type this, right, if you checkbox, you can see disappear. So now we're preparing the list so that it's cleaner. So this is the only list that we want. And then we're going to further refine our list, essentially. So we're going to do map, and then we're going to do let again. So what we did earlier. So for now, this is enough. So I'm going to do a formatting again, just do shift return or enter here. And then this one I'm going to do one more time, and then just go back. Okay, next what we're going to do is, you want to get the symbol here, this green light symbol here, and then the name of the task, and then the dates, alright? So we can do the variables first. So we're going to call it just task or task, and then current, right? And then we're going to do task. You can see that this is how it works. And then we're going to do dot, and then we're going to select this try yourself, and immediately you can see we already have this one, alright? And we're going to do plus, and then task dot name. So immediately we have the name as well, but you notice maybe we need some spacing, right? How you can do that is you can just do some spacing here, and then we have some spacing. Lastly, we can use the task.date. And then we want to format it to be a nicer format here, so we want to do maybe just the month and then the day, right? So how you can do that is just do format date again, and then do month, and then maybe dash day, right? So we can do some spacing here as well. So task 2, April 17. Alright, if we're gonna save it, you can see that it's very similar now. But you can see like there's a comma here. We don't want a comma, right? So how you want to do is just do a join here. So same thing, we'll just make sure that the join, and voila. You can see we have the exactly same thing. So yeah, if you do a checkbox here, you can see it disappear. Alright. So apologize, I'm running out of time to prepare for my meeting, so I'm rushing a bit, but just kind of explain a little bit more here, just to reiterate here. So when you're doing a task.filter current checkbox, so basically you're removing all the tasks that has been completed. Then you kind of refine your map again, alright? So you do map and let, so you do the task as a variables, and then you refer it to the current. So this is when we're doing the same thing again. You just do the task, try yourself, and then you do some spacing, and then task name, task date, alright? So you can kind of play around with it, what else you can add for the task. So this is one of the wonderful things about Notion, is it's very easy to kind of update and change. And through that you learn, alright? So I hope you find this video helpful, and then apologize that I'm rushing it a bit at the end. So if you find this helpful, do help to follow my YouTube videos, you want to subscribe, and the rest is just help you have a good day ahead or good weekends. So thank you very much.